So, hello everybody, and welcome to Delivering Data Services, a quick introduction to a course we did called Providing Data Services and Support from Surviving to Succeeding. Um, I'm going to go over a syllabus really quickly, just to give you the context that you need to understand the presentations that are going to be coming up. So we did 8 major topics, and I actually have slides for each one. We talked about data life cycles. We went over the many dimensions of data services. We talked about data formats and documentation. They'll ask me to explain the potato. We don't have time. We talked about common data sources, so Canadian sources, US sources, international sources, open and commercial sources. We discussed data reference a lot. We talked about licensing and collections. And we talked about data analysis. And that's my reminder to also mention that we did a ton of exercises. So many exercises. It was a lot of fun. We also covered promotion and professional development. And we did all of that with synchronous online classes that were in the afternoons from July 14 to July 24. And I say the afternoons, but it's all relative, depends on your time zone. We had a few optional course components. So there were some community discussion and drop-in hours, a sort of choose your own additional topic and workshop day that we did. Right now we are the ICPSR webinar series. Hi, thanks for being here. And we've even established a bit of a community of practice. So those capstones, which are what you're about to hear about from all of the other attendees today, there were 3 of them. The 3 capstones were the data collection development policy that Barbara took on. Barbara is a data collection strategist for Yale. There was a data resources scan, that was me. I'm a data librarian at Deleuze University. And then there was an instructional slide deck that was led by Stephanie, who is a data science librarian at the UC San Diego, University of California, right? Yeah, I remember my acronyms. Good job. So the data collections development policy capstone, it's libraries try to be lots of things to lots of people, but have limited resources. So the goal of this capstone was to develop a collections development statement that shows users how their library is growing and focusing on data collection to meet their needs while setting boundaries for budget, support, and the future. The library data support snapshot capstone, it has, like, there's a wide range of possibilities when you do data services and support, and very few people understand what those are and what they mean. So it makes it challenging to communicate what we do and don't do to our users, but also to our library colleagues and to leadership. The goal of this capstone was to use a data lifecycle framework to develop a snapshot of data support and data services at a library and at an institution. And then the instructional slide deck capstone, that one was the thought that an instructional slide deck is an important tool in the data librarian's toolbox, and a ready-to-go instructional slide deck about finding and accessing data resources, particularly those that are licensed by and available to the library, is a useful tool to have. So the primary goal of this capstone was to develop a template data 101 instructional slide deck and presentation that could be expanded, contracted, or otherwise adapted to meet the needs of specific groups. So these lightning talks, what are they? The different people that took the course are going to be talking about topics closely related to the capstones that they did. There'll be 5 minutes per speaker for a total of 45 minutes. Please feel free to put questions in the question and answer or in the chat as we go. But we will have 10 minutes reserved at the end for more questions and answers. For bandwidth reasons, the instructors, me, Stephanie, Barbara, will keep our cameras on, but leave your cameras off, please. And that's the intro. We're ready to go, Stephanie.
All right, so thank you, Julie, for teeing us up. I am going to be running our slides today, and we're going to kick it off. And we are going to start with Cecelia Lasley, who is going to be our first presenter. So Cecelia, take us away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cecelia Lasley. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a research librarian for the social sciences at Tufts University's Tisch Library. As a liaison librarian, I support the anthropology, child study and human development, economics, education, sociology, and psychology departments. Today, I'm going to be sharing about my capstone project, a slide deck for data search strategies instruction session. Next slide, please. Tufts University is a private R1 university in the greater Boston area, which are the traditional lands of the Wampanoag and Massachusetts people. Tufts is home to 12,409 students, 6,928 of whom are undergrads, and 6 libraries across 4 campuses. Tisch Library and its 2 branch libraries, the SMFA Library and Lilly Music Library, support the schools of Art, Sciences, and Engineering, otherwise known as AS&E. AS&E is made up of all the undergraduate students and 1,625 graduate students. Next slide, please. In addition to the context of the ICPSR providing data services and support from surviving to succeeding course, Tisch's Research and Learning Division engaged in an information literacy sprint during this past summer. The Silicon Valley style sprint was an intense collaborative effort to investigate and develop reusable learning objects about subtypes of information literacy, including data literacy. The division split into 3 groups, met weekly in those groups, and were tasked with developing at least 3 reusable learning objects by the end of the summer. Reusable learning objects could include, but were not limited to, Canvas modules, videos, lesson plans, and resource guides. I joined the data literacy group around the time that I began the ICPSR class. This was incredibly fortuitous as I was able to debrief about what I was learning in real time with my group mates and implement many of the lessons into our work. Next slide, please. One of the forms that this work took was a lesson plan for which I created a slide deck as my ICPSR capstone. This lesson plan is for a 60-minute session on data search strategies. The lesson was adapted and revised by myself and my colleagues in the data literacy sprint group from a session that I originally gave to an economics course during the spring 2025 semester. The aim of the new lesson is to encourage students to combine search strategies and explore multiple search tools when searching for data. I look forward to trying out the new lesson in the spring 2026 semester. Next slide, please. The lesson centers active learning principles by inviting students to participate throughout the session. Students are asked to define data in the context of their subject and course, before the librarian then walks students through how to use a subject-specific database, including how to find data through citation searching, and how to use a subscription data aggregator, such as Sage Data, for example. The students are then invited to try to find a data set in groups using one of 3 different tools: a subject-specific database, a subscription data aggregator, and the open web, and then share their experiences with their classmates. The lesson concludes with a discussion of additional data search tips and data support resources on campus. Next slide, please. I learned so much from the ICPSR course, but I'm going to focus on 3 key takeaways that influence the lesson plan today. First, data can have different definitions for different contexts, making it an important skill for defining it an important skill for data literacy and an important step of data literacy instruction. Next, clear communication is essential for successful data services and is healthy for librarians and patrons alike. This also has shaped other projects at Tisch that are beyond the scope of this presentation. Finally, librarians should embrace the collaborative nature of a reference interview when engaging in data reference, as well as internal and external communities of practice when working on new lesson plans. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your time today. I want to take a second to extend a special thank you to all of my Tisch colleagues and ICPSR instructors and cohort members. And I look forward to your questions. Next slide, please. Thank you.
So thank you. And yes, feel free to put questions into the Q&A. We can do some upvoting of questions. And you're also free to use the chat to talk amongst yourselves as well. So next up, we have Corey Barber. Corey, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. So my name is Corey Barber. I am the Data Services Librarian at Indiana University, Indianapolis. And I just started this year in January, actually. So this course with ICPSR was great timing for me. As a new data librarian, I knew I was going to need to be going out into courses and talking with students and faculty. So I decided to make an instructional slide deck that included all data services that we offered at IU Indy. So next slide. So what I'm going to talk about today is first how I wanted to build a framework for my slide deck, I'll go into some of the lessons that I learned throughout the process. And I'll talk about how I got to put this slide deck into practice on very short notice. I'll then talk about some of my next steps that I want to take in working with this slide deck going forward in my career, and then finish it off with some final thoughts and takeaways. So next slide. So like I mentioned, I really wanted to use this slide deck as a framework for anything that I could potentially do in the future. So I wanted this to be kind of like a one place where I can dump everything, all services that could ever possibly be offered at IU Indy, in any way that we could possibly help, so that I have a place to pull all that information and tailor future presentations, maybe dependent on the audience or the field that I'm speaking with. So that's really what I wanted to have, like a modular base slide deck that I could pull from. So next slide. One of the biggest lessons that I learned in creating this slide deck is I better understood what services we currently offered at my institution. Since I was new, I was still getting a handle on what all we currently offered, what other departments offered certain data services throughout the university. So it was really helpful to go through this process and try to list out every single thing that we currently have, so that I better understood myself. I also was able to get so many ideas for how I could personalize presentations to different disciplines, which was really exciting. And another important lesson was I got to see the gaps that we currently had and got to start thinking about ideating how I could work to fill some of those gaps. And some of that is some big upskilling for me, like learning how to code or learning how to do R. So that's something that I'm planning to do in the future. Next slide. Putting this into practice. So not long after kind of finalizing this slide deck, I got invited by another one of our liaison librarians to talk at the math department's like faculty meeting for the year, like their year-end faculty meeting. So I was able to, through having this basic slide deck, go through and pull out information and very quickly throw together a presentation to bring to the math department, to give maybe like a lightning talk like this, about 5-minute spiel of data services that we offer currently, and how I would like to better serve them in the future. So that already having that basic idea of a presentation really helped me feel so much more confident going into this last minute faculty department meeting, which could be a bit, intense and scary, especially with a department such as mathematics. Next slide, please. So some of my next steps, I really hope to continue to work with this slide deck for years as I continue my career at IU Indianapolis. So I really want to evolve it and get feedback. So one of my next steps is getting feedback from liaison librarians, our subject librarians that work directly with the departments. I also have a cohort of other data librarians in the greater IU system. So we have different satellite campuses. So I have some different data librarians that are very interested in looking over my slide deck and giving me feedback. I also plan to get feedback from librarians outside of IU, some connections that I have from conferences and just other groups. And then, I have some questions in mind looking at timing. I'll skip that and go to the next slide. So final thoughts and takeaways. This was really helpful for me. Number one, just to learn so much more about the data services that are currently offered at my institution, and to see really how I can speak about those and get faculty interested in implementing some of those services for their students. I was also able to see gaps that we currently have and dream about how I can upskill to improve the services that we offer. Next slide is just a thank you for having me to present today. Here's my information, my email. Yeah, excited to hear any questions anyone has.
Thanks, Corey. And it makes us so happy to know that you were prepared when invited to a math departmental meeting, which I feel like is a terrifying thing for a new data librarian. So this is wonderful news. Next up, we have Patricia Takacs, who is going to talk to us about her experience.
All right. Hi, everyone. Next slide. So before I begin, a little about my institution. I'm the political science librarian at the University of Florida. We have an expansive library system with around 300 employees and 7 libraries, including about 80 tenure faculty subject specialist librarians. We're an R1 institution. We have around 35,000 undergraduate students and 14,000 graduate students. As I was considering a slide deck for my liaison field, I felt the best way for me to contribute is through data literacy, because my faculty in the political science department provide the students with a lot of technical skills, but I think they're lacking the data literacy component. They don't address it as a transferable lifelong skill. Slide. So when I teach this, I'm going to make it interactive and conversational. That's how I do all of my classes. I've included some of the activity prompts that I'll be using in my classes and discussion questions. For example, I might open my class with the type of activity by collecting everyday data. It starts a conversation about types of data and ways you can categorize, and opens up questions about biases. Next slide. At its core, data literacy is the ability to read, interpret, question, and communicate data. In political science, data underpins everything from public policy analysis to electoral studies and international relations. But before we go any further, we start with a quick question. Think about the last political claim you saw and used a number or a graph. Did you check its source or method? And I know I probably didn't, so most people probably didn't, considering we're librarians. That's exactly why this matters, data literacy matters. So slide, we see everyday data in polls, charts, dashboards, memes, but we rarely think about where it comes from. Data isn't neutral. It's created, collected, and framed through political institutional processes. So I'd ask the class something like, what do you think who do you think funds a public opinion poll? And or who do you think defines voter turnout? And we would talk about how voter turnout can be measured as a percentage of eligible voters or as a percentage of registered voters. Both are valid, but they tell very different stories. And it's important to look at what story we're telling when we're talking about data literacy. We'd likely talk about the Pew public opinion polls, maybe even talk about following the money. Next slide. So we would proceed on with, I might offer up this information before I meet with the class, but I would likely open a few examples with these students. As I mentioned, my faculty tend to direct the students to data sets already that they'd like them to use. I would briefly expose them to this list and then ask them to pick a data set. Again, they might already have one. And then we might even talk as a whole class or a pair and share, depending on the size, where we would examine what they think the limitations of this data set that they chose might be. Next slide. Then I would move into asking them to examine their data set as a whole class or in small groups with these questions. You know, what is the source? Where did it come from? How was it collected? What could be missing? What assumptions are being made here? How is it framed historically? And I'm sure there's a variety of other questions I could get them to consider. Next slide. So this kind of questioning turns data literacy from a technical class task into a critical and civic one. As Catherine DiNazio reminds us, it's not enough to teach people how to read a chart. You must also teach them how to use that chart to make the world a fairer place. So I'd ask another question about how they see their data telling their research story. In particular, if we were talking to graduate students, this would be applicable, and what they think they would need to find in order to accomplish telling their story with data. Next slide. So to me, data literacy isn't just about spreadsheets or Python, which is largely what the political science department will be talking about. It's about understanding the power behind the data, who collects it, who benefits, and who gets left out. Ina Sander takes this further with the book Critical Datification Literacy, talking about the ability to understand how data systems shape our lives and societies. This includes making informed choices about technology use and demanding transparency and regulation, opening up a window for conversation into talking about data privacy and data storage in the life cycle. Most data literacy initiatives stop at technical training, how to read and analyze, but we also need to build critical understanding of how data influences everything from governments to social justice. Next slide. So my big takeaway, data literacy is not just about finding, analyzing, or visualizing the data. It's about thinking critically about the data. It's about helping students and all of us see the data as a language of power. When we teach data literacy as a civic skill, we prepare people to participate in society with insight, responsibility, integrity. As Ragafelli argues, educators who foster data literacy aren't just teaching analysis, they're cultivating socially aware citizens. When students can question and interpret data, they're better equipped to challenge misinformation, evaluate policy claims, and promote accountability. And I think that as a librarian, that is my duty. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Patty. Your students are very lucky to have you. I love those engagement questions, and I would love to take a class with you. That was wonderful. Okay, so next up, we're going to keep this rolling. Again, remember, you can put questions in the chat or the Q&A. We have Karen Viars.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I also am a political science librarian, so I'm excited to be following on the prior talk by Patty. My name is Karen Viars. I'm a research and instruction librarian at Haverford College. We are a small private liberal arts college outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So next slide, please. So at Haverford, we have about 1,400 students. We're undergraduate only. Proportionally, though, we have a big political science program. It is the largest major at the college, and as I mentioned, one of my liaison areas. So I started this role in the fall of 2024. One of the things I noticed in that first year is that political science majors often need data. It's usually focused on demographics, like you'd see in the census, or as was mentioned previously, things like election outcomes or public opinion polling. I noticed as well two main challenges for political science students around data. One is that they're not really sure where to look for it. And two, when they have it, they're not always familiar with the many things that they can do with it. So next slide, please. Since every Haverford student writes a senior thesis, that magnifies the challenges. Sometimes students will realize halfway through that there's a piece of data that they want or need to support their claims, and they're not sure if it exists or where they should look for it. Or they find data, but understandably, they don't want to do a complex data analysis project alongside writing a thesis and completing their senior year of college. They don't know what their other options are, and so they feel stuck. Next slide, please. So those are all the things that motivated me to take part in the excellent workshop this past summer. And because of what I learned there, I was able to approach this challenge with 3 interventions that helped. So as you can see, we're talking about communication, collaboration, and support for students. So collaboration with our digital scholarship librarian has been a key part of making the other 2 possible. Anna Lacey, who's our digital scholarship librarian, and I collaborate on teaching. And I was able to use the slide deck that I developed as the capstone as the basis for a pilot of trying a different approach to teaching data this fall. We usually get 60 to 90 minutes in a one-shot instruction session with students in their thesis seminar class, which is maybe 5 to 8 students. So we talk about what data is, what's involved in data collection. We also talk about the IRB process, which is important because some students are going through that themselves as part of their thesis. And it lets them kind of connect that the work they're doing has also been approved. IRB process has been approved in some of the data sets that they're seeing. And we talk about the data lifecycle. I model how to search for data, how to provide an annotated list of repositories. So we talk about subscription resources, other places they can begin searching. And we look at data sets together so they can see the different elements that are included. Anna talks about how to organize data, options for visualization and analysis, and has developed some great activities that we use in the classroom. We follow instructions with research consults to offer individual support. And based on what they have learned from that slide deck in that classroom experience, those are much more individualized, and students come in with a baseline understanding. Feedback has indicated that they really like these sessions, they find them very helpful, and that they like having two people they can connect with depending on their needs. All right, next slide, please. So when these kinds of resources and support are available, we found that we get much better student engagement around finding and using data much sooner in the thesis research process. We also find that they're just more comfortable with what they need and more comfortable with finding it, and that makes the whole experience more relaxed for them. So we've also got stronger in-library collaboration, which is great. We're on the same page when it comes to how we're helping this large group of students find and manage data for a year-long project. Our next steps will be incorporating feedback that we've gathered so far and planning for spring 2026. We're going to do this all again, but even better. Thank you so much for your attention today, and I look forward to seeing the next presentation.
Thanks, Karen. I love that it's all about collaboration and communication. I love seeing those themes come through in your lightning talk. All right, so next up, we're keeping the party rolling, and we are going to hear from Hejin Shin, who is coming to us from Hawaii. So Hejin, take it away.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Could you go to next? My name is Hejin Shin. I'm a data services librarian at the University of Hawaii at Mānoa Hamilton Library. And so let me just give you some background of the, information about the institution and the library. So University of Hawaii at Mānoa was founded in 1907, and it is one of the 10 University of Hawaii system campuses. And we are the only R1 institution with a student population over 20,000. And I'm gonna skip to the next. And the Hamilton Library has over 3.2 million physical volumes, as well as other resources. There are also law and health sciences libraries run by the School of Law and the School of Medicine, respectively. And the Hamilton Library has about 52 faculty librarians and 60 library staff and many student assistants. So we do have unique special collections comprising 8 different Asia collections and Hawaiian and Pacific collections. Could you go to next? So I have to cover so many. I'm gonna skip some. Yeah, I joined the library in September of 2024, just a little over a year ago as a data services librarian, which was a newly created position. I'm still developing services in data-related area and research data management. So attending ICPSR workshop in July was an excellent way to focus my attention on data services, make connections with other data librarians and instructors, and learn from them. So my capstone project involved scoping a data services program and creating the LibGuides on data services. So I adapted one of the data lifecycle frameworks developed as a U.S. Geological Survey's science data lifecycle model, which was introduced on the very first day of the workshop by Julie. And since I have to cover both research data management and data services, I have tentatively carved out which services are considered data services and which ones are data management services. So although they are overlapping, and I scoped data services as shown in this diagram on this slide. So my data services include providing support with finding and collecting data, and processing and preparing data, including cleaning, transforming, and identifying personally identifiable information, and documenting process and data. And then providing some support for basic data analysis and visualization, and also helping with incorporating the results into their research. Could you go to next? Inspired by the workshops, the last day's demo sessions, and I developed a series of 1.5 hour kind of data workshops this semester. So as you can see that I've done 2 of them in October, and then I'll be doing one next week, IPUMS data using in R, and also we'll go to coding early December. So I start out as a general workshop, progressing to workshops with a special data focuses, and then to coding. And I'm finishing up the LIP guides on data services, integrating with existing research data management guides. And I'm planning and developing a variety of data workshops based on faculty feedback. So they'll be expanding to cover some data, digital scholarship tools and methods. And as part of the library's strategic plans action teams to build support for data and digital scholarship, I'm also conducting a data resources snapshot in the institutional context. It's coming next. So I have few takeaways from the workshop. Most importantly, I gained confidence and motivation to develop a data services program for the library, having all this information from other universities and from the instructors. And I learned that data management services and data services are related, but can differ in their audiences and approaches. And I learned how to reach out to faculty to offer support and to solicit their data-related service needs. And another good part of the lessons that I learned from Barber is that building data collections and selecting data sets and packages are among the data service activities. Currently, I'm not part of the selectors, and I don't have any kind of authority to purchase anything. Lastly, establishing collaborative kind of relationships and communicating with campus partners are ongoing efforts. And providing support and resources to build an equitable and reciprocal and sustainable partnership between researchers and the Hawaiian community is a very crucial to promoting ethical research practices and respecting data sovereignty. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hejin. That was wonderful. And yes, for context, we did a brief one-shot on IPUMS on the last day, and we vastly underestimated how popular that would be and the impact it would have. So it is wonderful to see that it was carried forward. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'm
next
learning.
up, yes, Hejin, please
No, I'm
tell us
learning
how much you
also.
love
Yeah,
IPUMS.
yeah.
Next up, we have Sylvia Jones. So Sylvia, tell us
Yes.
all about your capstone.
So good afternoon. My name is Sylvia Jones, and I'm the Engineering and Science Research Librarian at Southern Methodist University. I'm going to briefly share how the workshop impacted my capstone and what the outcomes and my takeaways are. Next slide, please. For a brief background of SMU, SMU is a nationally ranked private university in Dallas, Texas. It used to be considered a traditionally liberal arts university, but we recently achieved R1 status this year, February, recognizing us as a top-tier research institution. We serve around 12,000 students, 7,000 of which are undergrads and 5,000 grads across 8 degree granting schools. So SMU Libraries as a whole is made up of 6 libraries, and we're now working to become an ARL library upon attainment of R1 status. The library itself has a Research and Scholarly Initiatives team consisting of 3 members, and I'm a part of that team. And it is that team that's largely responsible for data support. Next slide, please. So while going through the workshop and even beginning on my capstone, it became very clear to me how really decentralized the model was. So in trying to put this, working on the capstone, of course, I relied on my own knowledge, reviewed our web pages, LibGuides, and met with a team member to actually get some things clarified. Working on the capstone made me realize how not all of the responsibilities were clear, that seems to be an overlap in some areas. But on further investigation, we realized that there was not really any duplication of effort. It's just that different teams or different groups were just providing different levels of support. So the framework that we were given for the capstone was pretty good. It helped me to structure my report very well. But one thing I found out was that I needed to have some context for the reports for whomever was going to be reading that report. So I had to add some narratives to different sections of the report. Yeah, next slide, please. So in terms of the impact on outcomes, once the capstone was done, I submitted it to my direct supervisor, who reviewed it and felt that our team, RSI team, needed to have a closer look at the report. And we needed to review the gaps that had been identified, discuss whether or not we needed to consolidate or expand our services, or whether or not we needed to really align our services with the data lifecycle. But during the discussions and all, and discussing our team's expertise and workload, we decided that, okay, all we needed to do really was to just reassign some responsibilities in a few key areas to fill in the gaps that had been identified. Next slide, please. So the next steps and takeaway would be, we'll send this capstone with all its revisions to our dean, who will then review it with upper administration, and then she'll decide whether or not we needed to adjust the structure further. We're not very sure what she's going to do, but we feel that she has such faith in her team that whatever we have presented to her, she'll basically go with, but we're not very sure. And then we're going to revise our data support webpage to better spotlight the services that we currently provide. And we think that this is going to include some type of flow chart or something that would better visualize or give a patrons clear pathway of where they needed to go for the different data needs. All of the information is already there on the web page, but we think it needs to be better arranged. And some of my key takeaways are, the capstone was a great opportunity for us to review our services and the work that we do. And I realized that, I know we talked about aligning your data support model with the data lifecycle, but I feel that in instances where you have a well-established data services model, it might not be as easy to do. Maybe it might be easier to do in the planning stages when you're thinking of maybe upstanding a new service model. And I also realized that what works at one institution might not always work well at another institution. And that for us, I feel that decentralized models can work depending on your circumstance. And as long as the roles are clear and communication is strong, I feel that as long as you're providing the services that your patrons need, whatever model you choose to work with is the best model for you. And we're going to stick with our model until it gets to a point where we feel that it's no longer serving our patrons. So thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. I love the real world impacts. And yes, it's all about what actually gets the work done and how to help your patrons.
Yes.
So next up, we have E. Durham. E, tell us all about your data services network.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I go by E. I'm a research data librarian at the University of Kansas. In this talk, I'll share my experiences about the workshop and touch on the capstone, but I'll be giving a particular focus to the peer learning cohort and community of practice aspects, which I found highly valuable. Next slide. So this is a rapid talk, and here's a rapid overview, which I'm stating the obvious to keep myself on track, and also just noting I'll be only scratching the surface. I'll give some context and background, then briefly talk about the capstone, and lastly, share more broadly about my experience, along with some reflections and possible takeaways. Next slide. The University of Kansas, or KU, is an R1 public institution with over 30,000 students and an annual research expenditure exceeding 500 million. KU Libraries employs 125 personnel, including 50 faculty librarians. Of course, this context is just is what shapes a strong demand for robust and responsive data services for researchers here at KU. Next slide. The digital scholarship team of 3, including me, is what anchors data services at KU Libraries. This is a team that has established a solid campus presence over the past 10 years. It has recently expanded and is currently in the process of strategically expanding our data services to meet needs of researchers here at our institution. I joined in June, and that was shortly after completing my MLIS, and I participated in the ICPSR Summer Workshop in July, and this was all just very fortuitously timed and complemented my onboarding, orientation, and training period. Next slide. In my instance, the data support snapshot was a somewhat obvious choice due to its relevance to my newly formed role and the library's needs where we were at. I started populating the template during onboarding, and over time, we found that the Capstone could help inform some broader library initiatives, and I adapted aspects of the project to contribute to this strategic initiative aimed at assessing data services across the entire university with key partners like KUIT and the Office of Research. Next slide. So here's where I want to go into the broader experience. The peer cohort particularly fostered a sense of connection and belonging to the field of data services and librarianship for me. Again, I went into this right after completing my MLIS, moving to a new institution. I found it challenging to leave behind my previous learning and working communities, but the peer learning cohort aspect eased my transition and really helped me feel like I was establishing my identity in the field. And also the diverse backgrounds and experiences of the folks in this group really provide an opportunity for specialized support network. For example, there was a recent email thread that addressed a really challenging research consultation, and several members collaborated to help give response for both the librarian and the researcher. Additionally, the community of practice helps provide ongoing learning and development opportunities, and we are deciding to continue to meet on our own after this. So again, these are things I found particularly valuable, and is why I wanted to highlight them for this webinar. Next slide. So in reflection and summary here, as demonstrated through these talks, the ICPSR course and the Capstone project both are highly adaptable to individuals and institutional goals, needs, and interests. In broader reflection, I'm thinking about how modes of learning and working are rapidly evolving, and how reference questions and research consultations are becoming increasingly complex. On a grand scale, these peer cohorts and practitioner networks are potential partners for us as data librarians and data practitioners to assist in providing responsive data services to the folks that we work with as those needs evolve, which I think just extends on the concept of the data support snapshot in a very broad scale way. Next slide. So thank you for listening. I'm open to questions or follow-up by email.
Thank you, E. And yes, for context, we ran our course over the 2 weeks, and then we had monthly community of practice meetings, and nothing made me, Julie, and Barber happier than when the community of practice people said, we really like this. Can we keep doing this? And we were like, yes, please. This is the point. This is wonderful. We are so excited to see this community forming. So we'll get back to the lightning talks, but I have to just say it was so wonderful to see that happen. Okay, we are now going to hear from Sean Smith from Rice University. So Sean, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today and all of us. So I'm Sean Smith. I'm the Data Services Specialist at Rice University's Fondren Library, and I've been in this position about a year and a half. I am not a librarian exactly. I am a software engineer turned historian turned data librarian. So I bring a lot of other backgrounds to this, and this capstone was great to help really ground me in librarianship. So please, next slide. So a little bit background on Rice and our data services. Next slide, please. So Rice is a small private R1 in Houston, Texas. We are in the process of growing, but we have a little under 5,000 undergrads, about 4,000 graduate students, under 800 full-time faculty members, and about another 150 part-time ones. The library is also a little small, I think, for an R1. We've got about 110 full-time staff, and about half of those are professional librarians. Next, please. Thank you. So what is Research Data Services at Rice? So we are a team, not in the like administrative hierarchy sense, but quite the opposite. We are a dispersed team connecting people across the university and within the library. So we have 5 members from our Center for Research Computing. Within the library, there are 11 of us. I'm realizing my math doesn't math here, but you know, that's okay. I'm the only sort of full-time person on this team, but again, we draw from a lot of other parts of the library. So we have a GIS service specialist, we have subject librarians, we have people from digital scholarship services, and even our university historian is on the team. So this is a very broad team, and what the Data Services Capstone has helped me do is talk with this team about what are the services we really offer. And next slide, and one more. And so as this slide shows, this is sort of the promotion slide that I usually throw in at the end of talks and workshops and things like that. And you can see highlighted there, we say we do all things data. And as we've gotten sort of the word out there more, we are realizing saying we can do all things data is a bit too much of a promise. And so this capstone has helped us begin conversations on really what is the core of our services and what do we do. And next slide. And similarly, like this is the header of our page on the library website, and it starts with the mission and the vision, etc., which are great, important things to have, but we've, through conversations, realized this doesn't really help other people understand what we do. So again, this capstone is helping us not only figure out what we do, but then talk through how we communicate it. Next slide, please. So what have we figured it out? What have we figured out it is that we actually do? Next. So the one thing that we do that we know is popular is workshops, and we do have a nice range of workshops, and so we sort of worked from the workshops out to define what it is we do. And different people in that big team I mentioned do different parts of this, but we, focus on Excel and GIS, Python, our research computing that's mostly related to infrastructure, and related to all of that, we also do a couple of 2-day software carpentries at the beginning and end of the summer, and we're working on building out support for text analysis, qualitative data analysis, and some other things. And the next slide. So beyond workshops, right, thinking about what the workshops we offered helped us understand our expertise, especially in terms of software and tools, hence this list. Next slide. And then we also do a lot of consulting around that. But again, saying we do data consulting is sort of like saying we do everything. So we're trying to pare that down. And we are trying to be clear, right, that we can support research data management. This is one of the areas where the library and Center for Research Computing, which is in under the Office of Information Technology. This is where our connection really goes well. Our OIT folks can really talk to computing infrastructure, security, things like that. Whereas myself and some of the other librarians can really talk about the larger data lifecycle and plans for data management. We're also available to help, especially pulling in our subject librarians with data discovery and reference. And then we can offer at least some basic consulting on data statistics and visualization, and some of our partners in the CRC even can do data platform projects, but that's at a cost. And then another big focus of what we do is data storage and preservation, right? Anonymizing data, finding the right repositories for data, making sure you have a robust README and things like that. Next, please. And then, you know, sort of after our core set of services, we've also begun thinking about what are our sort of less formal services that we can help with, but aren't necessarily something we're going to promise going forward. Jamovi, yeah, I can teach that workshop if I have to. Not my favorite. I'd much rather do R. Tableau, sort of in the same field. Some of our partners in the CRC can help people get started with AlphaFold, Google Cloud, and things like that. And we're also a place for people to come with Gen AI questions, but really focus there on the AI that the university has licensed. We're not going to pretend to be able to do all Gen AI everywhere, but especially there, a major focus is helping people understand finding the right AI tool for the job. And next. And as with platforms, we also have sort of a secondary level or a less formal level for our consulting services. Here, around data collection, extraction, mining, a bit of cleaning and wrangling. We can also, especially with our subject librarians, help with some data purchasing. But again, that gets into budget issues that are generally above my pay grade. And we can also help with data citation, copyright, and making that data accessible. Here, with a lot, and with sort of our secondary services in general, right, we really stress that a lot of these decisions are discipline specific, and we are never going to be discipline experts, right? This is where we, especially talking to undergrads, we're like, this is where you need to talk to your faculty mentor, but even with faculty, sometimes we have to remind them, you know, that there is a level of decision making that's above, beyond data services and is really about the discipline, right? You have to check and know your discipline. So yeah, and then one thing we have affirmed is things we do not do. Some of these things are questions we get a lot and we're just not able to help with. And basically they're specific statistical and visualization tools. So thank you for giving me the time to talk. And you know, this capstone and the summer workshop is really a great way to start these conversations and to help us sort of make decisions about what we can and cannot support, and also looking forward what we'd like to support. So thank you.
Thanks, Sean. I love seeing the variety of data services that we're hearing. These are turning out to be wonderful complements. Okay, our last presenter is Paul. So Paul, take us home.
Thanks. Good morning and good afternoon to everybody. My name is Paul Barros. I'm the Business and Data Services Librarian for Santa Clara University in Santa Clara, California. My presentation isn't ready to turn its slide yet. My presentation is titled Developing a Data Services Plan When You Are Not Sure What That Means. I have been at SCU for just over a year. I support all of the departments within the Levy School of Business, and this plan is has a university-wide scope. Okay, now you can change the slide. SCU is a private and primarily undergraduate teaching university located in Silicon Valley. We have about 9,000 students, and our institutional philosophy is grounded in the Jesuit educational tradition. Next slide, please. So I was tasked with creating the library's first ever data services plan. It's because the university is looking to provide more support for faculty research, and also students' needs for data are increasing, and the library has many rich data sources whose usage we want to maximize. Next slide, please. So if you are tasked with developing the first ever anything, it means there is little institutional precedent or model to follow. So I started out by surveying our peer institutions about their data services plan ideas and discovered that our needs are not like theirs. So their data plans mostly focus on managing faculty research data, but what we want to do is focus on curating third-party data sets and helping patrons understand and use them. And managing faculty research data is for us a future goal, but not a starting point. Next slide, please. I encountered some bumps along the way. After years as a corporate librarian, I had to understand the needs of a completely different user base. Having data services librarian in my title created an aura of expertise that was yet to be developed. And then also in doing so, I discovered that professional development courses and opportunities can sometimes be a bit hit or miss. Next slide, please. So taking the ICPSR workshop was really a turning point and instrumental in my learning. And among the many takeaways, a key understanding for me is that there is no one-size-fits-all data services plan, and that instead you need to consider your specific user needs and your own library's mission. Next slide, please. Our users are faculty, staff, and students, and to understand their needs, we reviewed the requests that we receive for instruction. And for research consultations, we review the transcripts from our 24/7 Ask a Librarian chat service. And we are now in the process of conducting some online and face-to-face surveys of faculty about their data-related needs, particularly in relating to research. Next slide, please. So to guide us, we refer to our library's mission statement, which is bullet point 1. And then we created our data services mission statement to support that. And then we also defined the purpose of our plan, which is to provide a long-term vision for data services, which then in turn can guide us in shorter-term planning. Next slide, please. Our plan has cascading components, so high-level initiatives, specific goals, and then various ongoing and one-off activities to support them. Next slide, please. The top-level initiatives fall into 4 categories. So there's user support, outreach, internal operations, and then future vision. Next slide, please. The plan is presented in a grid form, making it a ready reference for us in our planning, and also making it clear to leadership about what our vision is and how we plan to achieve it. And this is the top portion of the plan. Next slide. And then implementation does not really mean starting from scratch. Recognize what you already do that can be incorporated into the plan, and then add the building blocks as needed for the new components, and should always be a work in progress. And next slide, please. So all the key takeaways, aligning your services with your library's mission and your user needs, rise to the top. And then also trust that you'll gain experience as you go, and keep your plan flexible to evolve as needs change. And you'll have many happy dancing patrons and librarians in your institution. So thank you very much for listening and for inviting me.
Thank you, Paul.
Glad
And I
to be here.
remember when we got a sneak peek of your chart at one of the community of practice, and we all got hard eyes. Everyone said, Paul, can you share that? Paul, can you share that? Paul, I really want a copy of this. So thank you so much, Paul, and to all our other presenters. I hope everyone enjoyed getting to see the wide variety of universities and data services, and we were all so impressed with how all these capstones turned out. So I know Barber has one quick slide as a wrap up, but just a round of applause for all our lightning talk presenters. I know it's really hard to do a lightning talk. It's really hard to do a lightning talk on Zoom. And we're tight on time for questions, but they do have their emails available. You can always reach out and contact, and they're all wonderful. We can attest to that. So Barbara, I think you're gonna finish us out for the last little section.
And I just want to say we're going to do this again. And so on Tufts, we've had such a good time doing this. We're even going to do, we've got new ideas, more activities. I certainly underestimated the impact of building community, and it has been so gratifying and so amazing to see this cohort thrive and really come together, and this amazing work. It just kind of blows me away. And we also want to add more participant, driven content into the workshop. So we had that last Friday of that pick your own adventure, and we're going to do more of that. So tell your friends. We have tentative dates of July 13th to 24th in that same afternoon online format. And please reach out to anyone with questions. So whether, check out the ICPSR Summer Program website, reach out to us. You can reach out to any of the cohort, and we would be happy to answer your questions. And I'm just going to stop this so I can see all your happy faces. And if you have any questions, and if you have to run, we're happy to stay a little bit and answer any questions. But also, if you've learned anything today, reach out to a fellow data librarian and check in. The community is important. They'd love to hear from you.
And maybe we could stop the recording for this part.